are oppressed. We are exploited. We are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights.
How great I am.
If you're some man of the rock,
You want first place, come play with me. You want second place, go somewhere else.
Let us sing forever. Let us play forever.
Wake your ass up. Awaken the beast inside.
Ways.
Welcome back to the realest podcast in the world, if not the world, the universe. I'm Osama.
It's Muhammad.
And you know, if you don't know who we already are, you're definitely living under a rock. So I'm not going to say who we are. Muhammad was good.
I'm good. How are you doing today?
Bro, I'm chilling, honestly. We just woke up and I'm interested to tell these people. I'm interested about this topic. Can't lie.
We literally thought about this topic 2 minutes before this episode even started. So explaining is going to be very hard. But as always, as we get into the subject matter, it's going to be more easier for you guys to comprehend, understand, as we're trying to analyze what this topic really is about. Now, the reason why I want to talk about it, because it's a very crucial time as far as like history, and especially when it comes to creators versus the relationship with the fans and the audience. And before, there used to be a balance. It used to be that the creators would create and the audience would listen, interpret, and just devour the art, and that was it. Through time, especially with the blend of social media in this era where audience have more connectedness, more awareness, and more open to the actions and the inner nature and inner world of these creators, they feel as if they get more as far as their livelihood, lifestyle, and also their attitudes and how they behave and stuff, right? And also with social media, everything being so revealing and transparent, creators obviously want to just hold on to are giving more of themselves than ever. So knowing that there's a huge tide in the relationship between the consumer and the consumerist, it's definitely weird. So the question for us is at Ways, it's like, you know what? There's certain topics we haven't talked about. Not that we didn't want to talk about it. It's just that, me and Osama, number one, if we don't know about the subject matter, we're not going to lend our voices, because what's the point of talking about something if we don't have the credibility or the knowledge or the wherewithal? It doesn't make any sense. Why waste 20 to 30 minutes of your time? Number two, morally and personally, we do not feel attached to this. We don't think it's going to serve us. It has no purpose to serve you, the listeners. If you're going to hear our voice and interpretation about the subject matter as well. Number three, if anything happens, because you guys are our listeners, obviously, right? And we support you guys, and we're super thankful because you guys have supported us for the past 4 years. Let's say this is an example. Let's say SpongeBob killed Squidward, and it became the biggest news on Earth. And for some weird reason, not even weird reason, Osama did not want to talk about it. We just did not want to talk about it. And at this point, Ways as an audience, as a brand, has gone bigger. And let's say 10 to 20% of our audience really want to hear our opinions about SpongeBob killing Squidward and how it's such a shocking moment in society. And if me and Osama decide not to talk about it, not only do you guys disagree with that, you guys might go out of your way to spark debates, spark rumors, spark hate, maybe try to cancel us for not talking about a topic or subject matter that we feel, number one, has no relevance, we don't know anything about, or number two, we just didn't want to talk about it at all because it doesn't serve us as people, and especially our audience. And we see like a tide, we just see like a rising tide right now where the relationship between the creator and the art and the fans, it's shifting. So it's just like, I don't know if it's happening for the worse or for the better.
You know, I want to go back to a few points you said. First one is topics that we don't talk about. To that point, I agree. Not to say it's not important to the audience, but it may not be important to us if we don't have enough knowledge or we don't have a connection to this topic. If you guys look through our catalog, the ones you can see, so this is episode 117. A lot of the topics we spoke about, a lot of people have not touched on it. Maybe to them it's not captivating enough, but to us it's like, yo, like we can make a boring topic to the world seem interesting. A second thing, Muhammad mentioned SpongeBob and Squidward, two iconic characters. But let's take the example where he said SpongeBob kills Squidward. If we don't want to talk about it, and there's no way you're going to convince me and Mo. Because yesterday, I was asking him, I'm like, what do you want to talk about? He's like, let's deal with it tomorrow, bro. Like, we're here for food, jokingly, right? I'm like, yeah, fact. Cause like sometimes it's hard for us to like think of topics to talk about, and it's easy when we have a guest because the guest is the one who sells the podcast. Like, we're asking them questions, ensuring that they have their answers on file, and like they kind of have to like bring their A game because me and Muhammad are here to ask like tough questions. But when it's me and him, and the one thing I like is how no matter what we talk about in 60 countries, you guys are always like listening, and it continues to grow. And I also find that when we're not recording, you guys are still listening to our topics and like hearing our opinions of what we have to say, regardless if you disagree or agree to our opinions.
Yeah, really, it's just like, I don't know. As a creator, it's just like, obviously, we love to learn and we love to have people on the show that are doing great things, and we learn from them as well, as far as their habits, their skills, and the overall life story. And that's the beautiful thing about it. And we're not saying that certain things in society to the point where we're just going to ignore it. Like, a beautiful example is George Floyd. I don't know where you were at that time and space, but obviously there's no bigger story in the world for that week or two than that story in particular, right? And if you had a podcast and you didn't talk about it, I can't judge you for not talking about that subject matter. Because number one, if you're a gaming podcast, sports podcast, anime podcast, whatever type of podcast you are, number one, I don't know how you grew up. Number two, I don't know what your background or information is about Black culture, American society. Like, there's so much different tangibles. You might even speak English, right? So it's just like the pressure that politicians or people, the news, certain people might have is being placed on podcasters and people who are making videos on YouTube. And number one, the difference is most of these people didn't go to school for that. And number two, they're doing it for fun, casually. But the expectations of us having that job and that accuracy, like newscasters, politicians, statisticians, and whatever, is we're getting that same expectations as those real people, even though we're podcasters or YouTubers. And I'm not saying that we're not denying the roles or tasks. We live up to it. Like, I'm not scared of it at all. Like, we live up to it. And obviously you guys know by now the Waste podcast and brand. But at the same time, it's very, very clear as the audience not to conflate or mix the two. Because I think those dangers, when you put those expectations on people who do this for fun, casually, as opposed to those who do it for a job and profession, two different things, right? You understand what I'm saying, Osama?
Yeah, 100%. When you mentioned the sports podcast and like going back to George Floyd, it was the biggest thing like in 2020 around May. Funny enough, it's like just when we had just started our podcast, the third episode was about George Floyd. And funny enough, that episode was actually no one knows this. That episode was actually supposed to be about social media, and I have the screenshot. And then George Floyd happened. And because our podcast, we first started off with what to do during the pandemic. Second episode was The Last Dance. Third episode, we're like, yo, there's no way we can ignore this. And if you go back to that episode, it did really well in terms of success just because everybody was talking about it. Now, I do understand if you are talking about sports, it would make no sense for you to talk about it. Not to say you're not addressing it on your social media page. It would just make no sense if you're talking about George Floyd when at that time, you're probably talking about the NBA Finals. And you're like, or in the NBA playoffs. You have to know your target market and our audience, because when people always ask me, what do you talk about? We legit talk about everything. And we address things that, one, we feel emotionally attached to. I remember the day when me and Muhammad were on the phone, we're like, yo, this cannot, about George Floyd specifically, I'm like, this cannot be not spoken about. We have to speak about it. And and then maybe 2 or 3 episodes after were around helping Black businesses, what you can do to help. It was really important. And here's one thing. Here's my last point. One of my friends was asking me, they're like, why do you don't you feel uncomfortable recording? I'm like, of course. You're sharing your voice with the world and they can easily attack you. But that's not what scares me. It pushes me because I get to hear people's opinions about what I'm saying, and my voice travels and helps people change their lives, and I can help change their perspectives. And I think you have to know your audience, and because we know our audience respects our topics, and they are actually coming to listen.
And obviously, if you listen from episode 1 to episode 20 to 40 to 60, 80 up to this point, you hear the confidence, the growth, maturity in our voices, the questions, and everything, the whole process. And even though, back to the George Floyd topic, even though something might be current in society and we don't address it, it doesn't mean that we don't respect the topic at all. Maybe we're talking about it offline, but we didn't have the confidence or the knowledge in our voices to address it. Because at this point, within 10 minutes, maybe what we're talking about might be confusing to some people. So to give like a perfect example, Roe versus Wade, very recent, a very big subject matter in society. Me and Osama did not address it. Number one, because obviously it's a very complex issue. It's not just something you just jump in, give your opinion, then boom, you're out. It's a very evolving matter. There's always new laws, regulations, and information, evidence coming out every single day. So what you might say on Tuesday might be false on Thursday, irrelevant by Friday, and just outdated by Sunday. Like, so that's how fast this situation is trickling. So number one is like, okay, you know what? Let's not talk about it because we have to really find out what's going on from both sides' perspectives. So if we do give our perspective in the ways style, it makes sense. And number two, even though we haven't talked about it on the podcast, it doesn't mean we're not talking about it offline. Myself have talked with a few people, including women as well. And I know Salma has done the exact same thing as well. And that's even us either knowing or not even telling each other that. But eventually we did tell each other that once we talked. So it's just like, even though we might not address it on the podcast, it doesn't mean we're not talking about it offline as well. And that doesn't mean that we might not be brought up as a subject matter in a future episode. Because if it is, at that point, we did the due diligence and the research to actually know what the information is and how we can actually attack it in a credible way for you guys to listen, interpret, and analyze for yourself.
You know what's interesting? And I want to hear your opinion after I finish what I'm about to say. When you have a podcast, you have a platform, your audience starts becoming a part of you in a sense where if you don't talk about what they want to hear, they almost support you less in a sense because they're like, oh, how dare he not talk about this topic? What they have to understand is we have millions of topics that we think about, thousands of topics that we think about in like years and months. And for a lot of people who don't know, if you're new to this, we've been doing this for 4 years. And sometimes we don't want to, if we spoke about something in the past that was never really uploaded, we just don't want to talk about it no more because maybe our words that we said, we still agree with or we're still growing, or it just makes no sense to talk about it at the moment. You have to understand when we talk about something, anything, and I'm going to give you an idea. We're going to talk about Palestine. I'm not against Palestine. We're going to talk about the NBA Finals. If I continue talking about the NBA Finals more than one time, two things are going to happen. They'll be like, bro, like, I don't want to hear the NBA Finals no more. Like, I want you to talk about what's happening in shootings in America. Okay, cool. Another person's going to say, oh, I don't want you to talk about this. I want you to talk about this. We're not always able to cater to people's opinions. We have thousands of topics. We understand you guys want your voices heard. But also, if you don't know by now, Muhammad's black, I'm Middle Eastern. Muhammad's from Ghana, I'm from Palestine. If we only spoke about things that happen in our own countries, are we really growing? So we're being unbiased and saying, yo, there's other things that we can talk about which bring attention. And here's my last point. One of the biggest things right now on TikTok happens to be an idiot. I hope you know who he is because he's been really controversial lately. Me and Muhammad don't feel the need to bring his name up or talk about him because like we've spoken about him how many times off camera? Multiple times. But is this something I can really address? Not really. I don't need that attention. Also, for people that don't understand who don't have a podcast, when you say stuff, you have to be careful because you're going out publicly and you don't know 5-10 years down the road if someone's gonna go back and say, yo, how dare you say that? And it's a whole different issue.
And that's a good point. And also another thing, like if you mention someone's name or brand, whether you feel great or you dislike them, since it's public information and you put it out there publicly, it doesn't matter if you have a small or medium or a small platform. If they see it, they have the right to respond to you in any way they want publicly. Obviously, if it's like an in a mature way. They should just respond to what you said regarding your claims. But hey, we're in an age where people could do what they want. They can mock you, make fun of you in different ways, or just try to destroy your platform all at once, especially if they have that following, that power, right? So you got to be aware what you say, who you go after, because obviously, like, what you reap is what you sow at the end of the day, right? And that's how powerful voices are. And that's how powerful, like, things travel in the internet.
Absolutely. And I'm not even talking about, at this point, canceling. And here's the best example. Here's a really good example. About Roe versus Wade. Because I'm not highly knowledgeable about this stuff, and you're going to take religion out of this. You're going to take anything subjective out of this, right? If I say anything with lack of knowledge, I am held accountable just because I said something without even thinking. If you go back to the George Floyd episode 3, who was the one taking the lead? Because when me and Muhammad were talking, we're like, yo, we need to, I told him you have to take a charge, obviously, but also if you go back and listen, Mo gave history and context to the buildup of this and why people were mad, why people were rioting, even though there was a pandemic. People were going out and just, like, sharing their voices, sharing their frustrations. And I did have a say, because me being Palestinian, I know how the people felt. It's getting tired. When you speak about something, there needs to be half emotion, half objectiveness. So people can sound how real you are and how upset you are and how happy you are. And also you have the facts to reflect those emotions and to objectify those emotions. But to talk about something just to get views, I can name you a lot of people who right now are probably being investigated, they're getting their back, they can't even look behind, they gotta look behind their back twice to ensure that, you know, they're safe. When you share and to the audience, like, everybody, to all the 60 countries, like, we love you, like, we understand, like, you guys want to talk about a lot, but having one episode a week is already hard enough for me and Mo. Like, imagine one episode, and that one episode has to, like, resonate with you, and it's tough. And Muhammad, I have a question for you. Why is it, do you think, after 117 episodes, this one being our 117, why is it so hard to pick an episode, and why is it so hard to, like, pick an episode just so our audience can like it?
It's beautiful what you said. 60 countries, one episode per week. You can't talk about a subject matter in 40 to 60 minutes that's going to resonate with at least 20 countries and what they're going through and within their own society. So let alone you talk about something that's connected to you, where you're from, and hopefully with that sound and that message in your voice, it resonates, it amplifies, it connects to different parts of the world, which we've been doing and we continue to do as time goes along, inshallah. As far as why is it so hard to talk about something, as far as a subject matter, is because we've been doing it for so long, and the off hours, which people don't know until they see it eventually in the future. Myself, Osama, we've practiced for hours upon hours, literally like the 10,000 hours approach by Malcolm Gladwell of practicing, and we have the footage and everything. So we've practiced and talked about most topics. So I think that's why when we talk about it now on the podcast, it's very seasoned and very thought out and layered as far as our answers, because we've talked about it so much. And it's not that like we've talked about every single thing in the world. It's not like we talked about quantum physics or philosophy of like the 1800s and the Enlightenment era or like whatever. Like, no, certain themes and topics as far as emotional intelligence, purpose, motivation, we've covered most of those aspects within the 2 years before we actually launched on Spotify and different platforms, the audio only version, like the Ways 2.0 model. Sorry for the voice crack. So because of that, that's why it's hard to find a topic. But at the same time, we have guests, and through that, hearing their stories, it works. But in episodes like this, just me and Osama, I had to talk about this because it doesn't make any sense, but it makes sense. The reason why it doesn't make any sense because we're not nowhere. We're not everywhere as far as the brand, the podcast, and all that stuff. But the goal is to be one day. And with that, it comes a responsibility, which we know, we've seen it, we've kind of dealt with in reality, and we're very thankful of that responsibility. But at the same time, it's to the extent of how much power does a fan think they have over Osama and myself, which is right or totally wrong. Because it's one thing for us not to talk about something that you want us to talk about. It's another thing to go out of your way to try to do something harmful, disgraceful, or morally out of your character to take us out as far as a podcast, a voice to our community, our families, and the world, because it's just not right. It's happened to a lot of people. It's possible to happen to us. And that's why it's just like, you know what? Let me just lay the ground now as far as the stance and the reason why these things are happening and the shift and where we stand on it. Because obviously, like, you know, an episode comes out once a week. You listen to it, you like it, you might share it with your friends, you might reflect on it. And remember, Osama and me, we're humans. Like, we have lives, we have families, and things are real. Things are real. Things are always changing. We go through stuff as well, but we still come at the end of the day to make sure we provide something for you guys, because we care about your well-being, your sense of security and peace. So in return, we ask for the same thing, despite when you felt as if we've left you short, which is something that's never on our behalf, but it might happen, because we're humans. We're humans.
You know, also kind of sometimes it's just a lot, and here's something I can honestly say. Sometimes it's a lot easier talking about something in private versus making it public. Because private, you're talking about your loved ones, and like, whether you disagree. By the way, like a lot of the times, me and Mo disagree on certain stuff. Me and Mo disagree with a lot of friends, but we're not gonna bring our friends on here and have these conversations because a lot of them don't want to be put in the public eye. Now let's use the keyword public eye. When you say something, whether you disagree, there's probably a lot of stuff me and Mo said 2 years ago that we don't agree with no more, just because we've grown as individuals. But it's there, and it's not about even being held accountable to it. It's just at that time, that's how we thought. People always think as if, yo, and I have friends still there, like, yo, why don't you talk about this? Why don't you talk about that? And here's one of our good friends. He asked us maybe 2 years ago about Asian racism, when a lot of the Asian community were getting bullied and hurt, and like, because of Corona, and because of Trump's rhetoric actions, he was allowing Asian people to get hurt. Now, we wanted to talk about that, but unfortunately, not to say something else more important came about, it's just that like we've had other like guests, other in videos of people and other podcasts. When you're in the business of podcasting or anything, actually, it's a product. It's like it's not necessarily what sells. It's okay, cool. So this is what's next, and I have to continue with this. There's a lot of stuff that happened where we're like, we've already spoken about this. What more can I say? Not because I don't want to speak about it. It's what more can I say? Maybe we'll make it a lot easier if you have a guest, or if you're confronting someone who is like from Roe versus Wade or from the government, and like kind of putting them in their place and asking them questions to see their thought process as to why they're making the decisions that they're making. I just want, like, to the fans, we've always asked you guys in the past, some of you do, some of you don't, if there's a topic you want, it could be the dumbest topic. It could be like, why did like SpongeBob not give out the recipe to the Krabby Patty? Okay, like we can talk about that. It's already, as Mo said very eloquently, 1 month, 4 episodes. So just put in perspective how hard that's gonna be. And if we don't have a guest, we really have to think about, oh man, like, what do we talk about? Even today, we took 10 minutes and we're like, oh, what should we talk about? What should we talk about? It's not as easy as it looks. It's not like I can open a camera and like, oh, let's start talking about this.
And obviously, it's not like you guys are with us every single day. If you're with us every single day, you're with us. So we're going to be talking about different things, more than 60 minutes. So we're going to talk about different subject matters. Whether we talk about on the show or not, you get your answer. But like Osama said, 4 episodes, 1 month, 60 minutes. Half of the time or 3/4 as a guest. It's very rare to talk about something that you might want us to address, but we can't. But that doesn't mean that we can't address those topics on a different mode, as far as like YouTube or Instagram. Like, that's why Osama's always told you guys since the beginning, if you want us to talk about something, let us know. A few of you guys have done it throughout the years, and we're really thankful and appreciative. But at the same time, don't be surprised if we don't address it, because if you're not telling us, how are we supposed to know? And at the exact same time, we can address it in smaller forms. We have a YouTube page. We have an Instagram. We go IG Live. We could bring you on, and we could talk about it for 10 to 20 minutes. Because at the same time, it's just another platform for us to lend our voices, and for you to lend your voice as well, so people can hear what you have to say about a subject matter that you feel as if it's not getting enough shine or importance. because we don't want anyone to feel as if we belittled them, their issue, or the community at all. It's the last thing we want. But at the same time, we're humans. We are doomed to make mistakes.
So,
we're not perfect.
Exactly. Check this out. Let's put the math. There's 12 months in a year. We have 4 episodes. So we approximately drop 48 episodes a year, give or take if we have 2 episodes a week. Sometimes we kind of surprise you guys. But minimum 48 episodes a year. Sometimes we take a month, but let's do the 48 episodes a year. Every month is equivalent to a rapper's album. When a rapper has to put songs on his album, he's going to like, this sounds good. This is fire, but I don't think this is going to resonate right now. Has to wait. Every month for me and Mo is an album. So we're like, there are episodes that we've recorded that never came out just because we're like, it doesn't sound good. I don't like it. Even there's older, as Mo mentioned, the 10,000 hours, the stuff we recorded. It's not like I wouldn't put it up. Just the one, the audio, and also too, maybe at that point we weren't really, mature, and emotionally mature, and also I guess mentally mature, but also maybe like, have a showing one day. We'll show you certain clips of like what we used to say. Maybe we could do that. So I just mentioned 40 episodes a year, 12 months. That's not a lot of episodes if you think about it. Considering each episode, it could be, and if we have 48 guests, then that means you're only hearing the guests. You're not even hearing me and Muhammad speak. If half those episodes are guests and half of them are me and Muhammad, then you have to be ready for me and Muhammad to speak. When you think of Drake, the biggest artist, when he drops an album, take the time to go through his catalog and say, okay, cool. 1 time, 2nd time, 3rd time. Go back to our catalog and actually give it a listen if you haven't really given a listen. And say, whoa, this thing did live up to fruition. This thing did live up to its time. Because I guarantee you'll say that. Because I went back to certain episodes, which is funny because I don't really listen to our own podcast. And I did. I'm like, this makes sense. Like, I see where we're coming from. What do you think about that, Mo?
Yeah, obviously it's just like the Ways podcast is the Ways podcast for a reason. So Osama and myself are just 2 people willing to learn about how we can contribute to society in the best way possible. And at the same time, while being students and explorers, we have those who are either students, explorers, master in their fields about what they do, what they know about life, and how they are experts in their fields and how everything works together. And through that, we just deliver it on this platform and you listen to it, whatever you use, Apple Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts, you name it. And you go about your day or your week or month in a beautiful way. And we try to do this, like Osama said, at least 48 times a year. And the goal is to do it as best as possible, better as possible, as far as audio, visuals, and at the same time have bigger guests, because we believe that this medium that we have, is very valuable, because it could really change someone that's trying to go from nothing into something more easier, because the voices, the message, and the themes that we are going through is so relatable to everyone and their role that they have to play in life. It's very relatable. And when Osama says, if you go back throughout the catalog and just play a random episode, even though the topic and the theme might be outdated, the voice and the message, it's very, very, very modern, very, very present, very, very, very ancient, because it's timeless. It's timeless because there's an openness. There's like a curiosity to what Osama and me are saying at that time, because we're just open as to how to get better and how to really see something we haven't seen before, how to really change something within ourselves that we didn't see before. And also the same thing for you. And by doing that, we really know that we are discovering something we haven't before, and we're doing this together, him and me, and also with you guys as well, because you guys are part of the journey as well. And when you have something like that every single week throughout the whole year and with different guests, it is the most beautiful thing in the world, because you cannot explain to I can't explain to someone what recording this podcast on a weekly basis, meeting people I've never met in my life, hearing their stories, getting the value and inspiration and having to take that energy and put it back into my own life makes me feel. It's the hardest thing to explain, but it's something that I wish that every human being could experience every single day. So that's the goal. How can everyone get that feeling of comfortability, inspiration that we get from talking to others and hearing their stories, but through your own role and your own purpose in life on every single day? If we could do that, then we are changing the world one day at a time. We are actually creating a sense of awareness. We are actually alleviating a lot of the traumas and inflictions that's onset certain parts of societies or communities due to whatever inflictions that might arise because of some politicians, influencers, you name it, celebrities, etc. And that's really the goal. It's the hardest thing in the world, but obviously we've been doing it for 4 years. I don't think we're stopping any now or anytime soon. So that's really it. And that's why from the beginning, the support, we're nothing without you guys. We're everything with you. But at the same time, there is a line that you're not supposed to cross as an audience. And at the same time, there's a line we're not supposed to cross as a creator. And as long as we know what that balance is, then ways is ways, always.
Ways is ways. And I guess to my last point, I can say this. A lot of the podcasts that we spoke about previously, some of them I had no idea going into it. And here's one. Validity of cliches. I remember when when Olivia went up to us and said, hey, I want to talk about validity of cliches. In my head, I'm like, what is this girl talking about? But then she explained it. And we got to sit there like, okay, cool. There's something we have to understand. We do like giving our guests the opportunity to talk about a certain topic. However, that does not mean that we're talking about it. Like, you're not going to come and say, oh, I want to talk about Roe versus Wade. The answer is no. Not because it's not important. I believe it is important. However, we only talk about things that me and Muhammad want to talk about. Let me repeat that. We only want to talk about things that me and Muhammad want to talk about. So if one day we decide to roast, I don't know, like an artist or celebrity, we're going to do that because we feel like it. If there's one day where we feel like we're not going to record, we're not going to record. That's why sometimes when we don't record, I realize in our analytics that people start, I'm not sure if you realize this, Mo, but people start listening to us. They're like, hey, so if you're listening to us when we're not recording, take the opportunity, get a notebook, get a pen, and start writing this information down. Because eventually, as Muhammad said, we're not done anytime soon. But hypothetically, after 6 years, after 7 years, we decide to take a year break. What are you guys going to do with the 6-year knowledge that you have? What are you going to do? Because there's two voices who are iconic, who are in 60 countries, who do no marketing promotion, yet you guys still listen. But my question to the people is, why do you listen to us? What is that one thing? I want one thing. Send us a DM message. What is one thing that allows you to go back every Wednesday to listen to me and Muhammad?
And yeah, I guess with that, thank you, as always. The support is everything. It's real. It doesn't exist without you. It only continues with you, and it will forever grow because you guys are the beholder of this thing. And as you are holding us, just know that you have to be easy and patient as we make decisions and do things that might not please you, might not be in your favor, but ultimately know that it's not that we might do something, say something, or withdraw from something because we do not believe you guys are in any deed not capable, not suitable, or not formidable to be the beholders of this podcast that you guys know and truly love. And with that, we say thank you since day one. If you've been listening to day one or even since yesterday, you guys are all the same, equal in value. And let's do this. Let's really work together and let's grow one day at a time. And if you don't know how to, by all means, hit us up on Instagram and let's just have a conversation, because this is how it started, from a conversation. We're young, 5 years old, up until now. Only difference is it's just recorded and you guys listening to it, you know? So it doesn't mean that conversation can't happen with you in person, FaceTime, whatever platform you name it, Zoom, it could happen. You never know what's going to lead into. But the point is, let's just have it now.
You guys thought we were done? I don't think so. We still gotta wrap it up. Please follow me at Kusa300 Follow my co-host Muhammad at Muhammad.global. Make sure to follow our page at Instagram. Also, make sure to subscribe to all our platforms. We drop every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Thank you. We'll see you next week.